Great. So, hi, thanks, Susanna, and welcome everyone. So, what I would like to talk about today is something that kept me occupied for the last 3 years. It's how to use the popular big room planning as an engine for agile transformation. And what I mean here is to use the BRP then to pull in agility for the whole organization. And to do that from the middle, I'm going to go back to that, what I mean by that, simply by using the forces of transparency and collaboration. And here, I mean, really the whole organization. I don't speak about only IT, for instance, but IT, the business, and the support function. So it's really moving towards to empowered organization. Very shortly about me, as you can probably hear, I'm French. I've been living in Sweden for quite a while, more than 20 years. I've been consulting in the agility universe since 2007 in different positions. And my hands-on experience this past 4 years really have been centered around injecting and enabling organizational agility, mainly in telecoms and in engineering. And what I'm going to share now is, of course, taken directly from that. And it's really how I do things, how I, so to say, introduce agility nowadays. But first, let me tell you a story what I mean with the BRP as a transformation engine. So 3 years ago, I introduced the big room planning for a tribe at a large telco here in Sweden. And somewhere else in the org, I had another colleague doing the same for her tribe, IT tribes. And then we realized, to build something better, we need to actually merge these two events. So we quickly did that, and to have something bigger. But we realized that then, while it's bigger, we need to pull in more people from the business. And that was actually quite a hard sell. We had a hard time to get people coming. They were like, they're really, will I really spend time on that? Have other things more valuable to do? But we succeeded in some way. We forced them to come. And we were very glad for this to happen because, of course, the event turned out to be a major success. Actually, we got stellar review, not so much because for the event itself, it was rather dull actually and very rough, so to say, but because people started to experience a collaboration like they never felt before. They marvel at how valuable, how fun and easy it was to collaborate and decide, prioritize. Everything was so easy suddenly. And this feeling quickly put into motion things in the org. We started to be approached by more people, more teams, other tribes that were interested to join our BRP, so to say, because they realized that important things were decided there. They realized that for them to be able to do stuff, well, they had to be there, else it will not happen. So our BRP became eventually the whole of IT BRP. We had B2C, B2B joining in. Of course, some part of business, we always needed business all the time. And then we had, the whole IT and marketing, and then we had the product coming in, and then the network coming in, and then stores, and finally, everyone, and I mean the whole organization, was pulled in, including security, finance, HR. Everyone was there and discussing concretely how to prioritize things. What was interesting during that process, and that's the point of my story here, is that we started to see people and team joining without any agile experience whatsoever. They were not part of any agile movement or any agile transformation. They had no training whatsoever. They had no tools. They had no frameworks. But they absolutely wanted to be there because things were happening here. And as they joined, to contribute to the discussion, of course, they were forced to clarify their needs, their intentions, their priorities. And of course, they had to understand the capacity they had and the complexity of the things they asked the rest of the organization to do. So they were put in a position via this big group planning where they were forced to deliver information, and that meant ransacking themselves or reorganizing themselves to pull in support to actually deliver what was needed. So in other words, this big room planning had become an engine really to spread agility to the far corner of the organization, to the whole org. And that was in a way that was much quicker than what we anticipated. And we also seen a lot of co-creation in that, in the sense that teams were sharing ways of working, tools, ideas on how to do the planning even better. Today, this BRP is still in place. It's called, of course, something health specific to that organization. And even though agility as such is not pushed as hard as it was before, it's still continuing. It's still living its own life. It's still going forward. So that's what I would like to talk about today, how to create this BRP as an attractor, how to set up the BRP to eat up the org and integrate non-agile parts, how to make sure that these teams and people are pulling in practices and mindsets so that the whole organization celebrates and collaborates. So what I'm after here is a way to inject organization agility from the middle where things happen, when you have this, where you have this strategy execution, if you wish. So first, very quickly, what is this big room planning? I assume that you have heard about it, so that's why you're here, but just quickly a summary of it. As soon as you're more than, say, 10 teams, you need you need a way to get the team together and resolve any type of dependencies to align on what's important for the coming period, say a quarter, and to create some kind of plan or at least forecast that is feasible, something that we can go out with. We can actually start talking about this plan because we have kind of melted it together. We know it's kind of feasible. And I believe this big room planning is essential, of course. It's an essential feature to any organization, say medium to large size. You align everyone on the intention, understand what's feasible. You can adjust based on that the ambitions and prioritize together on what's going to happen, what's next. And of course, you can actively and proactively look into issues and risks and manage them. So there is one thing here about the BRP which is super important for it to become this engine I'm speaking about. So there's a property of the BRP that is built in the whole thing, and that's the BRP is a forcing function. In the story that I've shared, it actually worked because BRP is at the center. Everyone is involved. It's like in this story, it was like a black hole. Everyone was pulled in, and finally the whole org comes together. It's where you have the teams, you speak about products, services, you speak about initiatives, projects, goals, objective, customers, use everyone, so to say, is pulled in. So being here at the BRP in itself has a tremendous reach, let's say, and can affect everyone at once. So that's neat. And moreover, as I told in the story here, it kind of forces a proactive behavior. The BRP sets expectations on what the team should deliver, so to say. And on this expectation, the teams are forced to collect the information that is requested, to prepare the discussions, to brainstorm what options there are. So in turn, it requires the team to put in place some structure to be able to do that. So you, for instance, if you want everyone to share their intention for the coming period, well, for some teams, for some function, it will be a no-brainer. We have that, it's no problem. For other, it will be more of a struggle. I've met teams that's like, oh, but why should I do that? What's valuable here with this? Oh my God, do we need to ask our customers what's going to happen? Or oh, we have so many stakeholders, it's impossible for us to actually give you, one intention. We're pulled in all directions. Well, we're not deciding anything. We're just doing stuff that someone else told us. All of these questions are so to say, in focus suddenly. And the teams are forced to reflect on that. What does that mean? Why can't we give that answer? So the BRP is kind of creating this expectation, and the team then are forced to fulfill it. So that's what's happened. You kind of force the team to do something different. Now, this is just not enough. This forcing function, so to say, is not enough by itself for the whole BRP to become this engine I was referring to. And I would like to paint the rest, so to say, as a mindset. There's a specific mindset you need to have. This mindset is two things. First, the first realization, the first thing to realize when thinking about the BRP as an engine is that BRP is not only about planning. So obviously, one of the main goal of the BRP, of course, is to create a feasible and a plan that you believe in. But the main purpose of the BRP, the real purpose of the BRP, for me, it's really helping the organization to evolve from this traditional hierarchy of authority, this pyramid of authority, to something else. It's a more fluid and transparent network of teams that are collaborating together around a common goal. So this network organization is what you need nowadays in this high complex type of environment we are navigating. Where you have your team at the edge, speaking to the customers, where the team share with each other's information, data, insight. This is what our organization need to be able to quickly adapt and fulfill the changing needs of the users, so to say. So in truth, it's about really, again, tipping this pyramid from hierarchy to something else. And of course, to surface what's in the way for your organization to get there. There's a lot of different elements that are reinforcing themselves to keep the pyramid in place. The BRP is also actually, to allow that, the way you do that with the BRP is to inject as much transparency and collaboration as you can. So the BRP as such is such a platform. It's a communication platform that allows this transparency and collaboration. And one more thing about the BRP is actually meant to remove itself. It's just a scaffolding. We've heard that from Mikael earlier in the track. It's a scaffolding where you temporarily set up this structure to learn the organization, to for instance, plan all the time, to constantly know what dependencies they have, to be proactive and discussing with everyone. So that's the scaffolding you put in place to force that behavior, so to say. So that's the key to understand what I'm going to say about the BRP engine is that it's not really about planning and that it's something temporary. Now, the second part of this mindset is that for it to work, for the engine to work, you need to have the BRP to be, I mean, to take an evolutionary approach. As I told you my story, the key there that was able to evolve the BRP itself, how actually we did the BRP. We had to evolve from a few teams to many teams to the whole organization, and doing that to answer the needs of this newcomers, so to say. So it also reflects how your agile adoption needs to evolve over time and not be, so to say, a fixed, this is exactly a plan that we have. Well, you know, have an agile approach to implementing agility. So you must have the freedom to add and remove elements to your BRP as you see fit, so that what we've seen happening, so to say, with this approach is that as we took it step by step, people saw problem. They could identify this problem, they could relate to them, and they could actually co-create solution to fix them. Anyway, pulling also a solution from around them. So the key here was people understood why certain things were done in a certain way. They understood how the work works here and how to fix it. So you had everyone understood why you didn't have any, so to say, major blockers or resistance in that. And the other part, of course, when you take an evolutionary approach, is that you do not push everything at once. You let teams, organization, people to pull in, change and pull in methods and frameworks as they need it. So eventually, the agile construct you end up with really fits your org. There's no extra fat, so to say. It's really something that's a fit to purpose for your organization, which means that it's sticky. And using this method, it will be hard for instance, this BRP or the thinking around it to be removed when you change, for instance, CIO or CO. What I also seen is that taking this evolutionary approach allows new possibilities, new solutions. In this example with this telecom operator, they actually designed a whole new way to handle big projects. That was really, really cool, but perhaps another topic. Okay, so BRP, the forcing function, can use that, but then you should have a mindset in two parts. First, BRP is not only about planning, it's about changing the organization towards a network type of organization. And second, you need to have an evolutionary approach to make this happen. And then I need to address this with, well, today, the most common way to introduce the BRP or to put it in place is to use SAFe, of course, the SAFe product increment planning. And there are clear benefits of using SAFe. Obviously, it's proven to work. Right? It's safe. A lot of people are ready to help you. A lot of consultants can actually do that, and also they can easily, compare notes. But actually, there are issues in the sense that if you wanted to, it cannot become this engine I'm referring to, because first it fits the vanilla organization. It's designed, it's a canned solution, it's a pre-cooked solution for solving a generic problem for big organization. It's not specifically for your organization. It requires you to replace a lot of stuff with something that was, so to say, invented somewhere else. So it's not really evolutionary. It's also very prescriptive. It's a lot of big upfront effort to put in place all of these prerequisites, all these terminology artifacts and rules and policies and roles and etc. And this is, of course, is a big push. It can be very painful and requires a lot of change management, a lot of training, a lot of time to actually explain how things are going to work. So it is a huge, so to say, threshold to come in. And third, very quickly, is that that's for me the most important part, is that safe type or implementation of the big room planning tend to be very static, in the sense that once they are in place, are very hard to move. You can, of course, improve, so to say, the actual execution. You know, it will require less time to do certain parts. The teams will get better at estimating a story point, of course, but you have a hard time to change the BRP itself, for the simplest reason that, you know, everything is in the book. It states here exactly how you do it, and you will probably have a lot of people pointing that to you, that, oh, you're not, you know, doing it the right way. So some warning here: safe is a good to get started, but probably keeping it the safe approach, we will not be able to create this engine I'm speaking about here. And just to illustrate that, what I'm trying to say here is that the safe approach obviously is also acting as a forcing function. So it is a kind of a high challenge to start with, because everything needs to be put in place. But eventually, of course, you get to a situation where everyone knows exactly how that's working, and everyone feels comfortable with that. What I'm proposing to do, the approach that I have instead, it's a much more messier way, where you start actually lower. You start, well, very low, really. You start where you are now, which can be really low. And you gradually increase expectation you set on the teams at each BRP. Each BRP, you introduce some changes. So this means that the organization is more or less constantly challenged to learn new things, you know, how to collaborate and forecast and align. And the BRP evolves to fit that. And that, of course, becomes the challenge in itself, how to keep that, or to design this increasing challenging, so to say, BRP, the expectations. And I tend to put it like this: there is, of course, a trade-off between the skills you see in the organization and the challenge you put. And it would be good to keep it in this flow zone where you have a good enough challenge, not too hard, not too many changes at the same time, just to let sufficiently so that everyone needs to move and learn, so to say. So what I'm showing here, for instance, is one example of how to do that, the different steps I've been using in this telecom example, but also with my current client. Everything starts at the team. First, you need to make sure that the teams are in control over their work, so to say. And to be able to do that, you need to clarify a lot of things. You know, what is expected of them? What missions do they have? What is the demand on them? What do their customer needs? Are there objective and key results they should follow? What should they focus on this period, for instance? They perhaps should figure out how to prioritize between all these different things. Michael Brod introduced this earlier in the track, this with the bucket model, for instance. That's one way to do it. You need to identify the dependencies the team have to other teams, the capacity you have, the complexity of the stuff you want to do. All of this, the team so they must master. And of course, visualizing everything. But at some point, perhaps after 2, say max 3 big room plannings, the teams get there. Again, they help each other, they inspire each other. And then you can actually challenge even more. For instance, by introducing initiative and project. And what I'm meaning here is not, of course, the initiative and project were there before, the team handled them before, but here to put them center. To do the same work as we did with the team, but with the initiative and the project, to ensure that they solve the coordination between the different teams, that they have clear objective, that they are clear on what to do, etc., etc. This may require special setup if you have very large project initiatives that involve a lot of teams, potentially a lot of work to make this happen. Once you've done that, what you could do to challenge with, well, putting product and services center and front. So assume that the teams know it's a solved problem, you know, how they actually control their work. The same for initiative and project. Now you can focus on real thing, can focus on a project and services, and that should be at the center. Eventually you get into more outcome focus, and eventually objective and key result for the whole organization. For instance, at this telecom example, after a while, I think it was like 4 or 5 big room planning, we got into a situation where the top management had a very clear objective on churn. Churn should be lower. And then they asked the team at the start of the ERP, please solve our churn problem. And at the end of the ERP, they see the story, they see the plan. They're like, you know what? We don't believe in that. We don't believe that we will succeed fixing the churn problem, given what we've heard. Please, we want you to replan that, and to help you want to deprioritize these things. So again, the teams, what they did replan using this new ambition on the churn problem to actually replan. Did other things, put down some services or product, and then could deliver a plan that management really believed in. Eventually, you get into this organization strategy, because what's really important is what's the direction here. And just as an example from this telco I was referring to, as all organizations, they always had a problem with people not understanding the strategy, and they've seen that in their different poll and surveys. And what happened is that this got better until suddenly it started to plunge again. And the realization here was that, well, actually, people are so it's a reverse situation. People are so aware of the strategy now that it's super clear to them, but they do not agree with the strategy, which is another issue. That's why the KPI strategy was plunging suddenly. But that's, for me, really is a high level of maturity when everyone understands the strategy so well that they actually have strong opinions on how to do things instead. Okay, so how do you keep evolving this BRP? I mean, there's a lot of work. How do you keep things in this flow zone, so to say? In this more dynamic context, where the BRP changing, it's changing shapes and etc., you realize that the BRP is not a finished product. It's in constant evolution, and therefore you need to treat it as you would any product you're managing. It's just an internal product. It has a mission. We just discussed that. It has, of course, a team, a small team that is diverse, cross-functional for the whole organization, self-organized, autonomous. We use, of course, product discovery techniques to better understand the target groups, the different teams, what they need, what they want, to understand about different targets. You have the noobs just starting, the old guard that's been there from the start, the early adopters. You do interview with them, you measure outcomes with clear metrics, you run retrospective at multiple levels. So basically you treat your BRP as a product, and that becomes a real engine for pushing agility all across the organization. Okay, so that's all I have time to share with you guys. I hope I've inspired you, and that's it. Now you look at the plain old big room planning with new eyes. This is really how I inject business agility nowadays into medium and large organization. Not only that, obviously, you need to complement with trainings and such, but that's how I do it. And of course, I intend to share more stories, war stories about that, concrete stories this coming year. So I'm interested in feedback. If you have any similar stories, success, failure with that, please contact me. I'm very interested.
Thank you, Christophe. I know we're a little bit short on time, but there is one question. Maybe we can just squeeze that in. Pete, do you mind taking your mic off and ask your question?
So thanks for this fantastic presentation. So the only thing is this kind of push and pull thing. So the big room planning, as you mentioned, is kind of the teams have to come in and plan. You cannot say I don't come. So this kind of if
Right.
when you're new and not new to Agile, it can be overwhelming. So how do you deal with this? I mean, this approach, evolutionary, and yes, with this approach to not overwhelm people. What are your experiences with that?
Yes. So the start is important. Again, you start from where you are, and you try to challenge a little bit at a time. So probably the most critical part will be the first time you do it, the first big room planning, and there you probably need to communicate a lot. At this current customer, we did webinars, we did open houses. We showed, for instance, we were using Miro as a board, how things would work. So we kind of prepared a lot, what to expect really, so that all the teams would be kind of ready and not spending time so much on how should I do, but more okay, what should we put in? What's the real, so to say, focus we should have? But yes, the first time is kind of the most critical part, and people tend to be kind of panicked. So for instance, you should try to really push this message that it's not there to be perfect. It's just that starting, we're experimenting with that, and we know it will go wrong. So don't worry, it will go wrong for everyone. So you try to lower the bar.
Thank you. So don't set the target too high, eh?
Exactly. Don't set the target too high, and be very clear on what's going to happen, and that will go wrong. But the second time is better, and the third time it's a charm.
Yes.
Thank you, Christophe, so much. We are wrapping